Abiy frame it. It's saying Ethiopia was robbed of its port, and Ethiopia needs Assab for economic reasons. How did the Eritreans frame it? They say this is an affront to our sovereignty. We are going to fight for existence. They saw this an existential threat to Eritrean sovereignty and to continuity of Eritrean state. We can debate about the validity of this argument or that argument, but we have to see how has it worked. On the Ethiopian side, while the issue of port, particularly Assab, has been a lingering issue, has been a national issue, just like the issue of Nile, the timing does not fare well for Abiy. One, he's talking about economic need or going to war for economic need, but the Ethiopian population is really sick and tired of war. There is war fatigue. There is extremely high cost of living. Insecurity is everywhere. If you ask any ordinary person in Ethiopia today, on the street, any town across the country, what are the top two most important issues to you? They are going to say cost of living and security. They cannot go to their villages, they cannot go to their churches, they cannot feed their children, they cannot pay rent. And what do these two problems have in common? The economic insecurity, the economic hardship, and the insecurity. They have war. It is the prolonged civil war, the prolonged war Abiy put the country into, that has led to deterioration of security and collapse of the economy. Now Abiy is prescribing another war on top of the war. So while people, do not mind, and they would probably be happy if the port, if Ethiopia gets access to the sea or gets Assab, an idea that you ask them to go to another war while they are suffering from previous and ongoing war, it just doesn't work. The other important issue
this is the aspect you said, the economic aspect, the current economic condition. I'm triggered to ask you a question because we know historically, nationalism in Ethiopia, war is one of the I think the unifying nationalism, the prospect of, and we've seen during the first Ethio-Eritrean War in 98-2000. Has nationalism lost its unifying power in Ethiopia because the economic, the dire economic condition, the struggle that Ethiopians have been going through the last 7 years, the fatigue that, what you are mentioning now, is it safe to say that has contributed to the loss of nationalism in unifying Ethiopians? Because I see them playing that game on the national television, playing the patriotic game. I think the party line itself now has it questioning that is almost like going against national interest. There is that framing that we're very closely following through. The rhetoric about, questioning that it has become a national interest, access to the sea. So that means if Ethiopians cannot really support full-heartedly, is it safe to say nationalism lost its unifying power among Ethiopians?
More than the economy, I think there are two types of nationalism that have been used for mobilizing for war in Ethiopia: state nationalism, ethnic nationalism. I've come to believe that they are both now exhausted. We have reached the limit of both. The romanticization of war is part of nationalistic rhetoric. Mm-hmm. Unlike past wars, unlike the wars where we fought, during the Eritrean War, then the war with Somalia, the war inside Ethiopia, the wars of the last 7 years are quite different. They are different in a sense that they are not fought in some peripheral, remote part of the country. They have been fought in the highlands, in the most productive, in an area where people are engaged in settled culture, in an area where most of the elites come from. I don't think you can find any minister general, any businessman who has not lost a relative, who has not lost a property, who have not been affected by war. I argue, and I would like to put this to test, both ethno-nationalism and Ethiopian state nationalism has really pushed their limit, and they have reached their limit, and people are really not as agitated as back in the day. Rebels mobilized people based on ethno-nationalism, and the state mobilized people on state nationalism, as late as the war in Tigray. But today, let's pay attention. In Mekelle, there is protest against TPLF. There is anti-war protest in Mekelle. There is anti-war suppressed, but there is anti-war sentiment and protest in Ethiopia, in different parts of the country. The idea of romanticization of war that used to help galvanize people either in support of the state's objective, war objective, or the rebels' war objective, is exhausted, has faded away for some time. The ruling party is trying this. So because people have not recovered from the recent wars, where historians will have to go back and see the war in Tigray. The war in Tigray, more than the material destruction, human destruction, the destruction to the national soul, where dehumanizing people became a simple task, where I think we were in collective hysteria, and people are now sobering down. There is the war had a sobering effect on the population as well as on the political elite. That's why, despite Abiy and his inner circle's effort, let's look at what the two nationalisms they tried to mobilize for the Red Sea. On Ethiopian television, they push Ethiopian nationalism. On OBN, they push Oromo nationalism. On one hand, it's about making Ethiopia regain its access to the sea. On the other hand, it's about defending Oromo government against Northern Alliance. Are people listening? Are people interested to listen? Yes. Are people agitated enough to support war, to send their kids to war? No. How do I know this? I was posting a video this morning in Jimma, where Abiy comes from, where he believes that is his base. People are chasing militia and police who come to villages to snatch away kids for forced conscription. So while people still aspire for Ethiopia to regain access, whether through Ethiopian nationalism or ethno-nationalism, I don't think nationalism has the kind of appeal, the kind of power it once had, say, during the Derg time or during the 1998 war, to agitate, say, Ethiopians or Oromos or any group, whether you appeal to them in Ethiopian nationalism or ethno-nationalism at this point. And in fact, it backfired, because the fact that they tried to push this dual approach of state nationalism and ethno-nationalism to galvanize people, it has been counterproductive. For one, if you are saying you want to defend Oromo interest against Northern Alliance, why do you threaten to invade the North? Right. On the other hand, people are saying, so this is about Oromos. It is not about the country. Why is there a special focus in mobilizing the Oromos? So a question will be raised, and I think these two approaches have cancelled each other out.
While we're staying in this topic, I want to digress from your argument, which we're discussing, because something interests me when it comes to mobilization and using population as a means to justify. To me, it is or injecting this tactic into justifying that we need access. This is the perils of population politics. I often refer to it. And we've heard his speeches. I think it began from the prime minister himself in 2023, when he first said that a country of 150 million population cannot be landlocked or a geographic prisoner, to use, I think, his term. And since then, this speech by different politicians, army members, sometimes we are 120, sometimes we are 130 million. Recently, the army chief of staff said that in 25 years, we are going to be 200 million. And he said a country of 2 million cannot hold a country of 200 million hostage, something akin to that. And this is a justification for access to the sea. Well, the argument is the country is large, cannot remain landlocked. I don't think Ethiopians in general want to see their country remain landlocked. The general sentiment is that. But in my view, at face value, yes, it's a valid argument. But this demographic reasoning has since turned into very perilous argument when it becomes a moral arithmetic, implying that smaller nations' sovereignty can be overridden by Ethiopia's sheer size. It is also an attempt to convert demographics into legitimacy, to suggest that Ethiopia's people are inherently entitled to expansion. I think you mentioned about the programs on the OBN, the Afan Oromo broadcast of the Oromia National Government broadcast. I think OBN is belonging to the Oromia National Government. So what I'm saying is your argument is grounded in reality. Most Ethiopians are not only traumatized by wars, but also they are tired of financing them, because somebody has to put the bills for the wars. So here's the question. Do you believe that by instrumentalizing the population size or going around the Oromo side, this is an interest, the Oromo interest, to defend that the regime, Abiy, and the cadres, the military, are risking stocking chauvinism without achieving unity? Is the rhetoric of size a substitute for consent from the people? I wanted to know your reflection on that one. Can nationalist grievance replace genuine public support?
Look, to argue that Ethiopia, a large country with a large economy and large population, has to have a say, not just on the economic aspect, but also on the Red Sea security, is a valid argument. I strongly believe Ethiopia cannot be a bystander in Red Sea security. We cannot be locked away. We have to be very careful. Just because Abiy mischaracterized and weaponized this argument, we have to be very careful. Ethiopia has to have a role. And we have to diversify our port access, we have to diversify our security, but it has to be done in consent, in cooperation with our neighbors. That's to say, the argument that we are a large country with large economy and large military and large population, therefore, we have to have a better access, we have to have better say in Red Sea, Indian Ocean theater, as an argument, is a valid argument, it should stay there. The danger comes when, as you said, you try to weaponize this and say, oh, we are 130 million and there are 3 million, we can just swallow them.